Well, there was an interesting story in the news this week, unrelated to Donald Trump or special counsels or Joe Biden. It was a jury verdict in favor of a climate scientist named Michael Mann. He is best known for his famous hockey stick graph. And it's called a hockey stick graph because it shows that global temperatures were relatively stable or a flat line throughout most of human history until the Industrial Revolution, when temperatures started moving upward sharply. So that's like the blade of the hockey stick. Suddenly it goes way up. So he sued two right-wing bloggers who falsely claimed that he had manipulated the data in his research. And this week, a jury awarded Dr. Mann more than $1 million in damages. So, Kim, let me start with you. This case is really interesting because the defamatory statements were about his research. The defendants were trying to undermine his findings regarding climate change. To what extent is there a First Amendment right to challenge scientific research?
Yeah, this is a really fascinating case. And as it goes up the appellate chain, which the defendants already said they're going to appeal, that's really where we're going to flesh out this question that you're asking. In the world of scientific research, where the First Amendment is really important, right? Because the way scientific research happens is through peer review, right? You have people putting research out there and then other people double checking it, challenging it, disagreeing with it. And that's how we get to learn what the real is. And so you want very robust First Amendment protections there. But those protections are not limitless. And in this case, what Michael Mann claimed was happening with these two conservative commentators is that they weren't just challenging the validity of his research. They were really defaming him as a person. So in both cases, there was a $1 compensatory award, which shows that it wasn't that he was harmed. It's also important to note that the court treated Michael Mann as a public figure in this because he's so prominent in the world of climate research that meant that he had a higher bar to prove. He had to prove not just that people made false claims against him and that his reputation was harmed, but that it was made with malice, with actual malice, the standard that we've talked about before, which is a lot higher than mere negligence. But they found that, and against one defendant, they awarded punitive damages in the total of $1 million, and in another one, $4,000. The $1 million award went against someone who compared him to Jerry Sandusky in the way that he, quote unquote, molested the research. Now that goes beyond scientific disagreement. The other defendant posted something to the effect that said, well, I wouldn't go that far, but this guy has a point. And that's where he got the $1,000 punitive award. I think, honestly, in this case, he probably has the better chance on appeal if he didn't actually embrace this idea that his research was so fraudulent that it constituted some sort of, offense against someone else and using really a horrific comparison.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, there is room for the appellate court to find that there are limits to your free speech rights, even in the scientific realm. And I look forward to seeing how that plays out.
And just for our listeners who might not know, who aren't, and I'm not a sports fan, but Sandusky was the coach who was a pedophile and convicted and gone. So you can imagine molesting children being compared to molesting facts.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah. So, Joyce, I want to pick up on this theme that Kim was talking about this idea of going after scientific research. I read there's something called the Climate Science Legal Defense Fund. How common is it for people to attack scientific discovery, and what's the danger?
Yeah, the flat earthers have been super busy. There were 34 cases last year, right? I mean, it starts to look like a war on science at some point. It used to be that scientists just fought it out in an academic arena that was dedicated to learning the truth, but no more. I mean, as we've pointed out, Mann, this legit scientist who is dedicated as a researcher, instead of talking about his ideas, they compare him to Jerry Sandusky, the assistant football coach at Penn State, where Mann also worked, who was convicted multiple times for sexually assaulting kids. I mean, that is just well beyond legitimate airing of scientific ideas. You know, that's just not legitimate scientific debate. And climate has become a hyper-political issue in these weird times that we live in. So this is what Mann said in his statement following the verdict. He said, "I hope this verdict sends a message that falsely attacking climate scientists is not protected speech." The good outcome here would be if this verdict leads to a bit of a reset and people take the temperature down. But I think we all know the times that we lived in. So, Barb, I was not familiar with the Climate Science Legal Defense Fund before this case, but they're the folks who provided a defense for Mann. They've been around since 2011, and their website says that they provide free legal advice to scientists. It's sort of crazy that there's a need for something like that, but I think it's a great thing that they're there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what great work, right? If you're a lawyer, protecting science and scientific discovery?
I was looking, wondering if they wanted some volunteers since I've done defamation work.
All right, law students, take a look at the Climate Science Legal Defense Fund. Cool job. Protect science and scientific discovery. Well, Jill, let's get into the damages. You know, we all got a lesson on damages in defamation cases through the E. Jean Carroll verdict about compensatory damages and punitive damages. So as Kim said, only $1 of this was compensatory and the rest was punitive. Can you describe for us the basis for the punitive damages here and whether you think they were appropriate?
I think they were appropriate, but let me also say before I answer that it shows how carefully a jury looks at this, that they could distinguish what is actual harm to reputation or emotional harm at $1 and then say, but yeah, we got to stop this. It's worth $1 million to punish this person from saying this. And the punitive part is intended to stop someone, to make them not do it again. And it has to be high enough that it will stop not just the person who did it, but will be a warning, especially, you know, given what you and Joyce were just talking about with the Climate Scientists Legal Defense Fund. If there's so much that you need a legal defense fund for scientists, you got to stop it broadly. And $1 million ought to get somebody's attention. So I think it was a good decision and appropriate. On the other hand, what the jury probably didn't take into account is that when you have only $1 of compensatory and $1 million in punitive, the court may knock down the punitive damages because of the differential. So that would be too bad, but it is something that could happen.
Yeah. I think that a case like this, though, if you're Dr. Mann in this case, it's a worthwhile case to bring just to deter and discourage people from doing this. You know, it reminds me of like Taylor Swift brought a lawsuit for $1 in damages over a dispute she had with the producer, and, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow with the countersuit against the guy who sued her for the ski accident and won, you know, $1. Even if it's just $1, I think there is a symbolic value there of saying, you lied, you did it to harm my reputation, and to, you know, send a message to others who might be so inclined that there's a price to pay when you say deliberately false things that defame people and ideas.
Yeah, and to clear your own name.